Coming up on this episode of the Hockey Nuts, Steve and I get you caught up with all the action in the NHL Playoffs. We'll break it down series by series. The World Championships are also underway, and we'll get you caught up to speed on what has been going on over in Europe. We'll also discuss all the other headlines of the week in a busy week of action around the hockey world. We'll have all the details plus our picks of the week coming up next. This is the Hockey Nuts Podcast, Season 1, Episode 39, recorded on Thursday, May 11th, 2017. NHL Playoffs wrap-up of Round 2, preview of Round 3.
Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome to episode 39 of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. My name is Wayne. I'm here with Steve. How's it going today, Steve? And I know what your answer is going to be.
It's going very, very well, Wayne. Good to be with you.
I thought you were going to say, man, it totally sucks. I'm having a horrible week.
I am not having a good, well, today went better. But no, I had a very terrible day yesterday. I was blue all day after the loss of the Rangers on the 9th. But I'm bouncing back and I'm doing good, and I've got positive things about that experience and all that. So I feel like you probably felt, when the Bruins went down.
Yeah, because I think it had happened about the same amount of time between the end of the game and the recording of the podcast. Was only a day or two before we recorded a podcast, and I was in a pretty crappy mood that first podcast coming out, so I kind of don't blame you there. I know how it feels. I went through it last round, so but yeah. Yep. Obviously, with you being a Rangers fan, the Rangers got knocked out, but we'll get into all the details. We've got to talk about Round 2 tonight and wrap up everything that happened in Round 2. Because as we record this, today is Thursday. We're recording a day later than normal, and we decided to wait a day so that we could include the 2 Game 7s that happened Wednesday night in this particular podcast, so we don't have to talk about it a week after it happened. So we'll wrap up Round 2 in this episode. We'll take a look ahead to Round 3, which starts tomorrow night as we record this. And, of course, the World Championships are underway, so we've got to talk about that as well. And there's been a few transactions, a few other things going on around the league, so we got a lot to talk about this week or in the podcast. So without further ado, we'll get going on that. Just a quick second, but first, we got to remind everybody again that you can subscribe to the show through iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Google Play Music, Player.fm, and of course any Android or Apple app that you use to listen to podcasts. You can listen to our show on our website at thehockeynuts.com, and you can also listen to us on the hockeywriters.com website as well, which is a great source for hockey news and hockey talk, I guess is the best way to describe theirs. They have a lot of great articles on there, and then of course they have the podcast channel where they have taken a whole bunch of the best hockey podcasts and put them together all in one place for those of you who like to listen to hockey content on your phone of choice or device of choice, I should say. And of course, if you want to support the show, you can support us financially, first and foremost, by using our affiliate links. We have affiliate relationships with Amazon and HockeyMonkey.com, and you can find those affiliate links on our website at thehockeynuts.com. Just click on the link to the one that you want to go to, and then any purchases you make at those sites, a little bit of a kickback will come back to us, and that will help us support the cost of running this little shindig. And, of course, we appreciate everybody who's used the links in the past, and we appreciate anybody who will use it in the future. And you can also support the show by sharing it with everybody that you know that is a hockey fan. A lot of our listeners are listening to us on their daily commutes or sitting right at the office as something to listen to while they're at work. Although you and I, Steve, don't have jobs that we can listen so much on the
Yeah, there's a couple times, where I'm working in the cooler, Wayne, and I'm listening to it, man. I'm listening to podcasts. So, but I know it would be nice to be able to sit back and listen to hockey podcasts all day and do my job,
Yeah. The only time I get to listen at work is if I do an overnight, and of course I'll be in the store with practically nobody there, so I would be able to. And occasionally I do have to work overnight, so. And actually, I do have one coming up in a week or two. We've got a big visit coming up later this month that I'll have to do an overnight leading into that, and I'll be listening to podcasts all night long. So,
that's neat.
So, other than that, you can, if you want to support us, you can use the iTunes app on your computer or device. Subscribe to our show there. It'll help us rise up in the rankings on iTunes. And also, we encourage you to give us a review on iTunes and ratings. All that stuff that you can do on iTunes. Any interaction with us through iTunes helps us rise the rankings at that spot, and that's where the bulk of our new listeners come from. Quite frankly, is iTunes. So we appreciate any interaction you give us there. And if you see us putting anything on our social media, if you like, comment, and share our content wherever you see us, we appreciate that as well. And there's been several fans in the past, in the recent past too, that have been interacting with us on the different forms of social media that we're involved with. And of course, we encourage you to get involved with the show. You can email us directly at feedback@thehockeynuts.com. You can tweet us. I'm at Wayne Halley 9. Steve is at SBall504man. You can visit us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/thehockeynuts, and we actually live stream the recording of our podcast each week on that Facebook page, and you can actually watch us make the sausage if you really wish to do so. Of course, watching us do it live doesn't include all the fancy music and the highlights that we insert at the end and all that stuff. It's just simply the raw, Steve and I talking, and that's it. And of course, after the fact, we add the music and the highlight packages and all that stuff that we put in there. So, but if you want to get a preview of what the podcast is going to sound like, watch the live stream, and you can get that. And of course, we also copy that live stream over to our YouTube channel at thehockeynuts.com/YouTube. So, all right. Well, that's all my spiel I've got to add there. So. Let's get going on the news. And first thing we're going to talk about is the NHL playoffs and round 2 wrapping up. So let's go through series by series, how everything went down, and then we'll get our thoughts and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and start with the Senators versus Rangers.
Off the draw, Carlson to the corner. McDonough. Defended by Mark Stone. An alert play to set up Pajot. Turris now will steer it back down. 27 seconds left here in Game 6. Chris Kreider goes across. Derek Stepan with a shot turned out by Anderson. 19 seconds left. McDonough along the boards, tied up. Turris digs it out. He'll send it all the way back down. No icing. It never makes it. 9 seconds left in the Rangers season. Pajot hits the target. Empty net goal for Jean-Gabriel Pajot. Ottawa up by 2.
The man that had 4 goals in game number 2 just put a dagger through the hearts of the New York Rangers.
Now the Senators were good on the boards in this game in their own zone. They make one last play in their own end.
And J.G. Pajot takes advantage of the play Joe was just talking about. Right off the camera, Craig Anderson jubilant beyond belief, the entire bench standing, and for Gabe Boucher, Marty Raymond, Mark Crawford, Cinderella moves on.
What a story. Jean-Gabriel Pajot, as Pierre pointed out, with that huge game. A double overtime winner, 4 goals in Game 2. They will count it out here, and that'll do it. For the first time since 2007, the Ottawa Senators are on their way to the Eastern Conference Final.
And Ottawa ended up winning that series in 6. And Ottawa now advances on to the conference final, which I'm floored that this has happened. Because, first and foremost, I thought the Bruins were going to beat Ottawa, and they didn't. And then I thought the Rangers for sure would beat Ottawa, and they didn't. And here they are now, sitting in the conference final, getting to face the perennial powerhouse, the Pittsburgh Penguins. So your initial thoughts since they played the Rangers?
My initial thoughts, Wayne, I guess I can sum it best like this. I was driving in my delivery truck a couple days, yesterday, when I was going through these terrible withdrawal from the season, the blues, and all that stuff. And, I thought for a moment, the Rangers didn't deserve to win that series. They really didn't. They played, if you looked statistically, in some cases they were overwhelmingly better than Ottawa. But it really comes down to two things for me. The games that were Game 2 and Game 5, we had the lead in both games with less than 3.5 minutes to go. In Game 2, we were up by 2 goals.
Yep.
And in Game 5, we were up by 1 goal. And we lost both of those games.
Yep.
Now, it can be said sometimes a team will catch you at the end. If they're a goal ahead, they can score, especially a team like Ottawa. And they can get you in overtime, especially on their home ice. But there's no excuse. I really don't think there's any excuse that they lost both of those games. And if you lose 2 games like that in a series in the second round of the NHL playoffs, I mean, you're toast. The Ottawa, that's a hard place to win.
Yep.
It's not an easy place to win. I think Montreal's a harder place to win.
Nope.
But the Rangers were winning both of those games in Ottawa, and they lost them both. And I really feel like if they had won one of those games, we would have been talking about a Game 7 last night or tonight, actually. And we've been trying to hurry this podcast up so we can get finished and watch it.
Yeah.
But, and that's the first thing. And the second thing is I think the Rangers did not contain Erik Karlsson. I think the way you have to play him on the offensive end is to stick him. You got to have a roving man with him at all times. And if you look back at noticeable points in the series, he was able to do whatever he wanted. He was able to score that crushing goal Tuesday night that put them up 3-1. That goal really hurt if you watch the game. And the Rangers just didn't defend him well. They just did not play good defense against him. So that's the way I feel about it. It's disappointing. I sit here right now with you, Wayne. I think we're a better team than Ottawa.
Yep. But
we could not win in that series. We made too many mistakes and didn't cover the guy that's going to get you. So
it seems like to me that the Senators beat the Rangers in almost the same fashion that they beat the Boston Bruins. They just going in, all the so-called experts thought that the Rangers were the better team. They said the same thing of the Boston series. They thought the Bruins were the better team and that they would ultimately win, but Ottawa in that, not only having Erik Karlsson on their team, who is right now my running away pick for the Conn Smythe winner if the Senators end up winning the cup, but it's just that suffocating defense that Ottawa plays, and it's so obvious that the way they play depends on what the score is at the time. When Ottawa is behind and or tied, they're a team that can be beaten. But as soon as they go ahead, their game changes like that. And
it's so true.
And they turn. They just it seemed like every time they go they go up 1-0 against the Rangers, and they immediately go into the trap and try to win the game 1-0. Even if it was the first 5 minutes of the game, they immediately try to win the game 1-0. Then if the Rangers came back and tied it, they'd play differently to try to score again. And then as soon as they regain the lead, Now, of course, they didn't have the lead very often in this series. The Rangers did a good job. Going into Game 6, they had the lead for what? I saw a stat that was like 17 minutes in the entire series in the first 5 games that Ottawa held the lead.
That's right. And they never got the first goal. The 5 games before Game 6, the Rangers scored first. And so Ottawa was on their heels. They never really got to, in big chunks of that game, they had to play catch up. But in that last game, they scored the first goal. And then when they scored the second goal, I was like, oh, my God. And, the Rangers were playing catch-up all of Game 6.
Yeah.
And they're just, and that I can't expect to be that not to happen in a 7-game series in the second round of the NHL playoffs. So the Rangers had their chances, and they just couldn't capitalize on those 2 games, especially Game 2 and then Game 5. Not winning either of those games really cost them.
Yeah.
Really cost them.
Yeah.
So,
well, and those overtime games, those are such a big swing in either direction. I mean, the Rangers win one of those 2 overtime games, and we're looking at a Game 7 tonight.
Yep.
They win both those overtime games, series is over in 6, and it's the Rangers moving on.
That's right.
In Ottawa. That's how those overtime games are so huge, and they're such momentum changers. But no, I thought Henrik played well. Now, the one memory I have from this series, the one lasting memory I have, and I know you're not going to like it, but is that goal that Erik Karlsson scored from basically the goal line.
Yep.
That he shot through a crowd that hit Lundqvist in the back.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Crosby goal earlier, earlier in the regular or late in the regular season. But he shot it from what was he, 30 feet away?
Yeah.
Hits Lundqvist in the back, and the puck falls in the net. And
they won that game 1-0, didn't they, or 2-1?
And I think that was Game 1, yeah. And then
Game 1.
Yeah, it was Game 1. It was the game-winning goal of Game 1.
They won 2-1, and that was with like 5 minutes to go in the game.
And that was the game winner, right?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah. So,
if you think, and then they score 2 goals in Game 2 in the last 3 minutes.
Yep.
If you think about how they won, I don't even think Cardiac Kids does them justice. They won in the second coming of Christ fashion, and I'd say that miraculous fashion. Maybe I shouldn't say it that way, but if I was the Rangers and the roles were reversed and we were scoring goals that way, I'd be sitting here right now going, "Oh my God!" I'd be
how lucky are we, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they won 3 games that way, so and like I said, it's out of my system now. There's positive things that I can look forward to as a Rangers fan. I don't think the prognosticators even picked the Rangers to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
They thought we were going to be a lousy team, and here we turned it around on them with off-season acquisitions of Zibanejad and Jimmy Vesey, who turned out to be a really good player. A lot of people said he wasn't going to do well. There's a lot of positives to take out of this season and build on.
Yep.
And I think the Rangers will do that, but they're going to need to get one.
And I think. And speaking of
player.
Vesey, I think Vesey would be Rookie of the Year candidate if it was any other year that didn't include Patrick Laine and Austin Matthews.
That's true. You very good point.
He obviously he won't be considered for that award because of those 2, but he still had a great rookie season. So the Rangers got a lot to look forward to. They really do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what their free agent situation is looking like. We'll talk more about that later. As the season ends and we start looking towards free agency. But I'm not sure what the Rangers situation is. But they overall they had a good season, and they'll be back. They always are.
Yeah, I think they will.
So all right, well, Ottawa moves on. So let's move on to the other series in the East, and that is the Capitals versus Penguins. And man, there's a lot to talk about here.
Won by the Caps. Can they control? They cannot, so Ovechkin darts back. Very quiet. You can hear the tap of the puck on the sticks. This one ricocheted back and will have to be chased down by Kuznetsov. In the final 15, a team that has had injuries all year and had significant injuries in these playoffs has seen their goaltender return to form in the last game. 2 seconds and 1, and the defending champions are going to defend still. They're halfway there. Marc-Andre Fleury registers a shutout, stopping 29 of 29. And the Washington Capitals faced with the bitter disappointment yet again of having been eliminated by the Penguins in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Pittsburgh ultimately won the series in 7, and of course they will play the Ottawa Senators in the Eastern Conference Final. Game 7 was last night, and it seems like forever ago because
it does.
But it was just last night, and Pittsburgh ended up winning 2-0 in a near perfect game, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
that
game last night was very frustrating for me to watch because, of course, I was actually wanting Washington to finally break.
Oh, so did I. Yeah.
But Fleury, Fleury just played tremendous.
He played out of his mind. He played, classic Fleury. I mean, he's a goalie that he has his moments where he can't stop a beach ball, but man, when he's good at the right time.
Yep.
And he chose the right time to be good last night.
Oh, yeah, he did.
He frustrated Washington all night long, and you could tell that Washington was frustrated because even early in the third period, they were taking chances that they were just in a spot where like they were taking chances like it was late in the third, and Pittsburgh just shut the door on them.
Yep.
And I thought for sure after Game 6, where the way Washington dominated Game 6
in Pittsburgh,
that I thought for sure Washington would come out and just finish them off, and they almost came back because Pittsburgh was up 3-1 in this series at one point.
Yep.
Washington came back and tied it, forced a Game 7, and then 2-0 loss. Disappointing, but
it was.
But we're finding out today that it's likely that Ovechkin was hurt, which explains his lack of production in the last couple of games in that series. So
yeah, if you're down 3-1, Washington can blame losing this series not on Game 7. What do you think, Wayne? They lost this series when they couldn't capitalize at home in the first 2 games. Okay, so they lost Game 7 in Washington.
Yep.
They lost to the Stanley Cup champions, a great team that's perennially a powerhouse. It could have went. They lost this series when they lost both home games to start it out with.
Well, that didn't help, but to me, Game 4 stands out as a reason. Obviously, they had the chance to tie the series in Game 4, 2 games apiece. Crosby was hurt. He didn't play Game 4.
That's true.
No better chance to really take advantage and, tie the series up, take advantage of Crosby not being there. But Pittsburgh came out with a gutsy performance and ends up, running away with the 3-1 lead with Crosby sitting on the sidelines. I think that is the point where where I said, okay, well, looks like Pittsburgh's going to win this series and Washington's going to be out again.
Yeah.
And I saw earlier today, you remember the last time Washington advanced beyond the second round?
It was 1998.
Yeah, 1998.
Yep.
You saw that too, yeah.
I saw that.
Which is basically Ovechkin's entire career.
Yeah. There's no reason why they shouldn't have had this series tied 2-2. It should have been 2-2. They should have won a game at home, and then they're not chasing the series the whole time.
Yep.
Here they are down 3-1. They have to win. And I thought Trotz did a great job of keeping his team's mind off of everything. All these years that we had, they didn't think about it. They came out there that game 6. They just obliterated Pittsburgh, and I really thought they were going to take it after that game. And I owe that to Barry Trotz. I thought he was a master at keeping the team calm. Just go out there and have fun. Don't worry about the past. A lot of people have said things, and it really doesn't matter. He and I'm sure he's feeling the pressure, like I said. But
but in the first period of last night's game, it looked like the past was coming back to haunt Washington because they looked shaky in the first period of last night's game.
I agree. Yep.
So once again, Washington is eliminated in the second round, despite having a huge regular season. And I gotta wonder how long they're going to keep this team together.
The first thing I thought of when they scored that second goal, I was like, we're watching probably the end, and they have so many great players.
Yeah, and they got a couple of them that are going. I mean, they're not going to be able to keep this team together as it is. Because they got some guys going to free agency, and they're obviously not going to be able to hang on to them due to salary cap reasons. So, yeah, I think this was the year. If Washington was ever going to get over that hump, this was the year. I don't know how they can top this year in terms of talent on paper, so to speak.
I agree.
I think this was it for Washington.
To me, they had the premier team in the NHL. They really did. and they just could not get over. They blew it in the early part of this series. There's another case where I think they are, especially the banged up Pittsburgh Penguins. I think they are a better team than Pittsburgh at this juncture in the two teams' season. Washington is definitely the better team, and they just couldn't get over the hurdle and beat Pittsburgh when it counted.
Yep. I mean, look at all the defensemen that Pittsburgh still have sitting on the sidelines that some may or may not play.
They did this whole series. In fact, our whole playoffs, Chris Letang has not played one game. And that's a Norris Trophy guy, if ever there was one.
Well, at least, the best. Yeah. So,
it stymies me, but here we are again talking about Washington biting the dust before the conference finals.
And how many times has Pittsburgh and Washington played in the playoffs? And I think only once has Washington beat them. It was like 9 times or something like that.
That's
I
right.
I don't know the exact number, but I saw that too. I'm like, wow. So Pittsburgh basically way back. So somehow Washington's got to. It's kind of like the way Boston was against Montreal back in the day. You know, every time they would play each other in the playoffs, Montreal would win. For years, that would happen. Yeah. Something like 40 years that went on. Now, they didn't play each other every year for 40 years, but a 40-year span, any time that Boston played it, they played each other like 15, 17 times in that 40-year span. And any time they played each other, Montreal won every single time.
Yep.
That's that's the way it was, and I think this is a modern day version of that type of rivalry that just one team just knows how to beat the other.
Right. No, I agree with you, Wayne. I think that's very true. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Sometimes it is a mental thing. You know, they've got them, and it's just Washington has to find a way, and they just haven't. But I don't know. That's a shame. They had. I really think. I really thought they were going to do it this time. But,
now everybody thinks that. Everybody's been saying that the winner of this Capitals-Penguins series is going to be the one that represents the East in the conference final. So we'll have to see.
Right.
We'll have to see how that plays out because now Pittsburgh advances on to play Ottawa. So,
right.
Before we talk about that series, let's move out west and talk about what happened in the other two series in round 2. First series is Blues Predators.
Yep.
Rene with his 3rd assist of the postseason on the Yarncroke empty net goal. Yossi moves the puck around. Predators clear. Down to 15 seconds. Let's listen to the crowd. For the first time in franchise history, the Nashville Predators are headed to the conference final.
And Nashville ended up winning that one 4-2, and they will advance on to the conference final for the first time in their franchise history. And they ended up beating Nashville 3-1 in Game 6. And I think last Friday was Game 5. St. Louis did force a Game 5, but I think Predators pretty much had this one right from the start.
I agree.
I don't think St. Louis ever did come up with a great way to beat Nashville.
I watched the bits and pieces of this series in both St. Louis and Nashville, but I sat down and watched the entire Game 6 in Nashville. And more so, Edmonton gets a very close second. But more so than any other team, their fans and that building makes a very powerful difference in these Stanley Cup playoffs. They're undefeated at home for a reason.
Yep.
They get out there, and that Bridgestone is Bridgestone, right?
Bridgestone Arena, yeah.
It is loud as it is.
They are into it in Nashville. They really are.
And it's very hard to hear, much less play a hockey game.
Yep.
And so I think that really factors in, and especially upcoming against the Anaheim Ducks, they're going to have a tough time. in Nashville, playing the Predators. I don't know who has home ice in that, Wayne. I should. Does Anaheim have home ice in that?
I think Anaheim does. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Anaheim does.
Yeah. They cannot afford to lose a game at home.
And I think no matter who won that series, Edmonton, Anaheim, Nashville is going to start on the road. So, but yeah, Pekka Rinne is playing out of his mind. The Predators defense, I mean, they got studs back there on D. They've got this is a great team. This is the Nashville team we thought we were going to see all season long. And this team struggled and struggled and struggled and scratched and clawed their way. No pun intended, obviously. They scratched and clawed their way back into the playoff hunt and ended up getting a spot. And now they are dominating in the playoffs, much in the way that we thought.
We thought in the beginning. That's Wayne. That's so well said. I thought that Nashville was dead. I put a fork in them starting these playoffs. I thought, well, no, there's no way. They backed into the playoffs. But boy, I've got egg on my face for that. They have played so well, and they're at home. They're invincible, it seems.
Yep.
They really feed off that six skaters, so to speak, the crowd. And so listen, that conference final is going to be an exciting finals to watch.
Sure is.
But I know we're getting a little ahead of ourselves there.
Yep.
I just think St. Louis, once they lost at home, again, you cannot lose at home if you play in Nashville.
Not if you're, right. If you can't beat them in their building.
Yeah. Nobody's been even close. I guess Chicago had a chance there, but nobody's been even close. So that's the reason I think that you can chalk up the why Nashville Predators are in the conference finals.
Yeah, and and St. Louis just couldn't seem to score goals. The strength of Nashville. I mean, you can't blame St. Louis's forwards for not scoring. I think the blame is more on Nashville not allowing goals, but they just couldn't. They just couldn't seem to get over the hump. I mean, they fell. The closest St. Louis got to winning this series is when it was tied 1-1, and then Nashville won the next two games, went up 3-1, and then it was pretty much all she wrote at that point.
That's so true. They won their two home games.
Yep.
And I don't know. St. Louis. Listen, I think the better team won in that series.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And in that particular series, contrary to the two Eastern Conference series, the Nashville was the better team and they won.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah. So all right, let's move on to the final series in the second round. Ducks Oilers.
Mark Letestu for Draisaitl, 13 points in the series, turned over at center. Draisaitl had it, knocked away again. Empty net, and a chance here that goes wide. Gagliano goes to the bench. Getzlaf checks back in, along with Kessler. Down to 20 seconds left. Silverberg intercepted, lost it at center. Getzlaf gets it deep. It's closing time here at Anaheim. They'll need a buzzer beater. Lucic over the line. McDavid, Draisaitl, cleared away. It's a Duck win in Game 7. The demons have been exorcised, and Randy Carlyle's crew moves on.
And we haven't had any Game 7s at all in the playoffs until last night, and then we had two Game 7s. So back-to-back Game 7s. Ducks and Oilers were the nightcap of last night's action, and that game did not disappoint, although I struggled to stay awake all the way through the end. I nodded off a couple of times during the intermissions and a little bit I missed a little bit of the second period nodding off too. So, but not to say that it wasn't an exciting game, but because it was a very exciting game, but One thing that disappointed me the most on that other game 7 last night, of course, I was rooting for Edmonton to advance in that one, just because I just like watching that team play. They're fun to watch, but they just seem to be. They just seem to be. I don't know. I think the moment got the best of them last night. Anaheim came out and just outside of the first period, which I think was pretty evenly played, but the second and third period seemed to me was all Anaheim last night.
Mm-hmm.
It really was. And I think that's a testament to Anaheim's playoff experience that they have, and the determination not to repeat their Game 7 history, which is what they lost the last 4 Game 7s they've played at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anaheim's had trouble, that's for sure, and they talked about that on NHL yesterday.
Yeah.
But I did not get to watch that game last night. Of course, I had to be up at the crack of dawn, but.
Well, so did I, but I didn't care. I was going to watch it. Game sevens, I try not to miss if I can. So yeah, I'm a little short on sleep today, but but yeah, I did force myself to stay awake and watch that one. But yeah, it was a good game overall. Edmonton had plenty of chances, particularly towards the end when they really started to press. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of chances, but they just couldn't get the puck by the Anaheim goaltending. So Gibson, played a great game last night. He didn't have to play a full 60-minute game because for the most of the second period, Edmonton just didn't do much of anything at all. Mm-hmm. And probably the first half of the third, they didn't do much until they really started pressing towards the end of the third. But I don't know. In my mind, Anaheim outplayed Edmonton last night, and that ultimately ended up being the series. But what a wild series that was. You had blowouts going in both directions. I mean, you had Game 3 where Anaheim blew away Edmonton 6-3. You had Game 6 where Edmonton blew away Anaheim 7-1. I thought after that game, Edmonton was making a statement there saying, "Hey, we are a more talented team than Anaheim, and here's us proving it." Right. And then they came out in Game 7 and just were flat most of the game. So, and a good buddy of mine who I believe listens to the show is a big Edmonton fan, and he was not pleased with their effort last night. So, and I think it just comes down to the moment got the best of Edmonton. They're young players. They kept saying during the game that Connor McDavid has never played a Game 7 at any level going up through.
Wow.
So not of course Game 7s you typically don't see in youth hockey, but once you get into juniors, you start playing 7-game series. And he's never been involved in a Game 7 before. So he's never been involved in a one and done. Now Game 7s, I think, is where college players, in particularly college players that have experience playing in the NCAA tournament, have an advantage over these Canadian juniors. Because in the Canadian juniors, they play 7-game series in order to advance from round to round to round. In college, once you get to the NCAA tournament, it's one and done. Mm-hmm. So the whole entire tournament is nothing but, if you want to think of it as nothing but Game 7s. So the players in college learn how to play in games that you win, you advance, you lose, you're eliminated. Period.
Elimination games. Yep. That's right. Wayne, in this series, much like in the Capitals series, I watched the Game 6s. And in both cases, Washington destroyed Pittsburgh. They had the momentum, and that was in PPG Arena.
Yep.
And in this case, Edmonton and their crowd, believe me, they're just about as raucous as Nashville. Could you imagine if they had won? It would be you'd lose your hearing in every game.
Yeah.
I'm
going to miss the Edmonton crowd.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, their crowd was just all into it, that 7-1 victory over the Ducks, and the Ducks could do nothing right. I mean, the confidence was so overpowering in that game. Edmonton had the confidence, they had the momentum, and they were exactly as you said. We're going to show you we are better than you think we are. We're not some young bunch of kids.
Yep.
We're a great team, and they came out there and proved it. And I really thought, when I went to bed last night, I thought, well, it might be a struggle in the Honda Center, but I think Edmonton's going to win this. And I woke up this morning and was surprised. I really was. I thought Edmonton was going to have a carryover of their momentum and their confidence that they gained in 6.
Yep. Yeah, I thought so too. So I was disappointed with the outcome, but oh well. And what I told my friend, I'll tell any other Edmonton fans that are listening. Look, that was just their first appearance as a group in the playoffs. And I think they showed themselves well for the most part. They had a few hiccups here and there, but those will be solved as they gain experience. And now they've got the experience of playing in a Game 7. They have the experience of knowing what it feels like to lose, which is something that young teams need to have, so that next year when they go in, they know that they know what that feeling is to get eliminated from the playoffs. And they're going to want to try harder to avoid that feeling. So I think next year you're going to see Edmonton come back. They should easily make the playoffs next year. And they're going to be a much tougher team to beat because of the experience from this year.
I agree.
Has given them. So for you Edmonton fans out there, don't hang your heads too low.
Very impressive team.
Your team had a very good season, and they're going to be a powerhouse out west for sure for years to come. As long as they can keep that core of players together, they're going to be a very good team going forward.
Agreed.
All right, let's take a look ahead at the round 3, the conference finals. So we're down to 4 teams in the East.
4 teams it is.
Yep. In the East, we have Penguins versus Senators. And Game 1 starts this Saturday, May 13th. First 2 games are in Pittsburgh. Next 2 games are in Ottawa. And then they alternate games the last 3 games of the series if those games are necessary. All the start times have been laid out already. Most of them are 8 o'clock starts, with the exception of Game 1 is a 7 o'clock start, and then Game 5 is a 3 p.m. Must be a Saturday. Oh, it's a Sunday game. So yeah, my initial thoughts on this series is I think, once again, I'm putting Ottawa strictly in the losers category in this one. I think Pittsburgh's going to come out. I think Ottawa's going to face their toughest test here.
I think so too, and the difference with the Penguins, perhaps that makes them a favored in this tournament, is the Penguins. They have the weapons to stop Erik Karlsson if they so choose, even without Chris Letang.
Yep.
They can stop Erik Karlsson. They can, and that's what they're going to have to do. I think. If Ottawa goes into that 1-3-1 trap against this team, not taking anything away from Boston or the Rangers, but they have people like Sidney Crosby and Phil Kessel and Evgeny Malkin that can burn you.
Well, and this is how Pittsburgh's been winning is with that top line. They've been their power play has been deadly. I mean, You've got Malkin back at the point. You've got, of course, Crosby sitting on the half wall. You've got Gensel, who's come out of nowhere to be a huge playoff force as a rookie. You've got Kessel with his insane release.
Yeah.
His shot is hard, it's heavy, and his release is lightning quick.
Accurate. Yep.
And then they throw whoever defenseman they just happen to have laying around as the 5th guy on that power play unit. But if there's a team that can beat this 1-3-1 trap, it's going to be Pittsburgh because offensively they have the weapons to be able to overcome that trap offense. So it'll be interesting to see how Pittsburgh attacks this Ottawa defense. And
I also think that if Ottawa is fortunate and they jump to an early lead, you're looking at a team that is completely weathered and seasoned with that experience that they have over the last several years. Their core group, they're down 1-0, even 2-0. They can come back on Ottawa in a hurry.
Yep.
They can be aggressive even when they're down. And you got to be aggressive against this Ottawa team. That's the only way you're going to beat them. You have to be aggressive. I think the Rangers were good at that, but they lost in the last few minutes of those 2 games. But you have to be aggressive against Ottawa, and it pays dividends if you are. I think Pittsburgh will be, and I don't know what Ottawa can do to stop them.
Yep.
Even if Craig Anderson stands on his head.
And he probably will. This is going to be, a good goaltending situation. Both goalies are playing lights out right now. So it should be interesting to see what happens. So game 1 gets underway this weekend, Saturday night. But out west, we have the Ducks versus Predators. Those are the 2 remaining teams out there. And game 1 gets underway Friday night. So that's tomorrow night. First 2 games are in Anaheim, next 2 in Nashville, and then, of course, they alternate games 5, 6, and 7. And actually, those games aren't going to be – we won't have to stay up. I'm looking at the times right now. Yeah. We're not going to have to stay up till all hours of the night. The latest start time for the games is 9 o'clock p.m.
That's right.
That's game 1 and game 7. So, obviously, when you get to this point in the playoffs, there's 4 teams left, so we're only going to have 1 game per night.
Right.
Every night the rest of the way. So you've got, Friday night is the West final game 1. Saturday night is game 1 of the East. Looks like Sunday is going to be, so basically they're alternating. So you've got, Pittsburgh, you've got Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. So no 2-day breaks at all in that series. And then the Ducks Predators, you have Friday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday, Wednesday. So it's basically alternating. There's going to be, starting Friday night, there's going to be 1 game per night for the next up to 14 nights.
Right.
And they're just going to alternate East, West, East, West, East, West. So there'll be good games on every night.
That's right.
At reasonable start times. These 10:30 game starts have been killing me, but looks like those are over.
Yeah, that's right. You won't have to stay up late anymore that late, Wayne.
Yep.
You'll be okay to go through for the duration of this now.
Yep.
So
good to go.
Yep.
So should be fun. As far as jumping on a bandwagon, I was on Edmonton's bandwagon after the Bruins got eliminated, and now Edmonton's eliminated, so I got to jump off that bandwagon, and I am officially putting my hat on the Predators bandwagon the rest of the
Oh,
night.
wow.
Yep.
Oh, my.
I want to see them win.
Yeah. The sentimental part of me down inside would like to see them win as well, with their fans and this being their first season. I'll go ahead and say, Wayne, you and I are on the same bandwagon. I'm jumping on the Predators bandwagon too. So
And part of the reason is, the Ducks have a recent cup in their history.
Yep.
So, I like to see new teams win the cup. The Penguins obviously are a perennial contender, and I just can't join the Senators bandwagon because they beat the Bruins. So
yeah. Let me say this: if Nashville does flood, I'm pulling for the West this year.
Yeah, me too.
I am not going to pull for the Eastern Conference teams.
Nope.
Just not going to do it. So.
No, yeah. If ultimately Nashville loses in this, I'm going to be on the Ducks bandwagon probably in the final. So
yeah.
I just don't like either team in the East.
Yeah. Yeah, either team.
Because Pittsburgh already has enough cups in my mind, and Ottawa, well, even though they don't have any cups, they have cups that hang. That's the thing that bugs me with the Senators. They have Stanley Cups banners hanging in their building, but they're from like 1908 or something like that, from back when the Ottawa Senators of the original 3-team NHL. I'm like, those don't count. It wasn't even the same franchise.
That's right.
But they got those Stanley Cup banners hanging in their rafters. So, but the expansion Ottawa Senators have never won the cup, but neither is Nashville. So, no, I'm all in for Nashville the rest of the way.
Yeah. They count me in too. That's settled. I'm with you.
All right. Well, good. Let's see. Now we got to move on to some of the other things that have happened around the league. Where the transactions concerning college and junior players are really slowing down now. I only counted 4 junior signings over the past week.
I think that's right.
That was through the 9th. I didn't look to see. Let me look to see if there were any in the last day or two real quick, because I have the 4th through the 9th. There actually was 2 others in the last couple days. On the 11th, which is today, Linus Soderstrom, goaltender. I wonder if he's related to the Soderstrom. Remember, I can't remember his first name now. There was a Soderstrom back in the late 80s, early 90s out of Sweden who played in the NHL briefly. Goaltender.
Name rings a bell.
Yes, and I can't remember his first name. Of course, there are listeners out there yelling his name right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder if he's related to that one. Possibly. But anyway, Linus Soderstrom goaltender, has signed with the New York Islanders as they search for a decent goalie. Let's see. Actually, that's the only one. Yeah, the only other one I have listed here is a loan of the I don't even know what this is. Damir Sherabzynov, defenseman, who's a Kings prospect, has been loaned to Neftekmik. I don't know if that's the KHL or not.
Neftekmik is the KHL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't know they had that kind of a relationship with the KHL that they could loan players to and from. I didn't think
me neither.
I didn't think the NHL was on speaking terms. There may be other people out there that know more details on that transaction other than that. But anyway, let's move on. Oscar Fantenberg, defenseman, has signed with the LA Kings out of HK Sochi, which is a KHL franchise.
That is.
Roop Hintz, a forward, signed out of the Finn League with the Dallas Stars. Vadim Shipachyov.
I say Shipachyov.
Shipachyov. That sounds about right. Shipachyov. I heard it pronounced Shipachyov.
Okay.
Vadim Shipachyov, anyway, forward, has signed with the Vegas Golden Knights. And early reports from Vegas is he will be on the NHL roster, whereas the other kid that was with the Golden Knights is probably a long-term prospect project.
Right.
But Shipachyov should be directly on the Vegas Golden Knights and probably will be a top 6 for them because, we'll talk more about Shipachyov here in a minute. I've got a story with all his stats and all that. But, Vegas Golden Knights now have 2 players on their roster. So, And the final signing I've got is Dawson Leadhall, forward, signed from Regina Pats to the New York Rangers.
And I don't know this fella. I got to admit, I don't know Dawson Leadhall. So that's maybe a depth signing, Wayne.
Yeah, he's probably going to play in the American League. Most of these players that have signed are playing in the American League. And I think the reason these are slowing down is, the American League teams, the playoffs are going on alongside the NHL playoffs, and just fewer and fewer teams are playing now. So, All right, some of the other transactions we've had. First one is a big rumor that is flying around. Forward Ilya Kovalchuk is now hoping to return to the NHL next season. The New Jersey Devils, who own Kovalchuk's rights until he turns 35 next April, recently were told by his agent, Jay Grossman, of his client's intentions to come back to the NHL. Kovalchuk, who's now 34, voluntarily retired from the NHL back on July 11th, 2013, after, he still had 12 years and $77 million remaining on a 15-year, $100 million contract he signed with the Devils back on September 3rd, 2010. Boy, I can remember when they were throwing contracts around like that. It was ridiculous, but they put a stop to those with the latest collective bargaining agreement. You don't see those long contracts anymore. Right. He signed a 4-year contract with SKA St. Petersburg of the Continental Hockey League in his native Russia on July 15th, 2013. Grossman said, Kovalchuk has asked me to make his intentions known to Ray Shero and the New Jersey Devils. When Kovalchuk left the NHL, his contract was terminated and he was placed on the voluntary retirement list. That allowed the Devils to maintain his NHL rights until he turns 35, which would be on April 15, 2018. Prior to turning 35, if Kovalchuk wants to sign with another team, he would need approval from all 31 NHL teams. And of course, that's unlikely to happen. But the Devils could sign Kovalchuk and either keep him or then trade him. Right. Kovalchuk, selected by the Atlanta Thrashers with the number 1 pick in the 2001 NHL draft, had 816 points in 816 games with the Thrashers and Devils when he left. He scored 52 goals twice and at least 30 goals 9 times in 11 seasons. So,
was a great NHL player and has maintained that, Wayne.
Oh, he dominated the KHL for sure. Yep. He was one of their best one of their top 5 in scoring every year, the 4 years he was there. But if he comes back and plays for the Devils, the Devils are going to get good in a hurry.
Oh, they will,
because they got Kovalchuk. Now they'll have Taylor Hall. They just recently didn't they pick up somebody else? Oh no, they haven't yet picked up somebody else. They have the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
In the NHL draft, that's correct.
So the Devils could turn around in a hurry.
They could
if they can convince Kovalchuk to play for them.
My understanding, you hear the scuttlebutt going, Wayne, is he doesn't want to play with New Jersey.
That's kind of what I'm getting to.
And this may be fabrication. Okay, you just put You try to.
This is all speculation.
Read
Yeah.
tea leaves, you know.
Yeah.
But they say he doesn't want to play with New Jersey because he wants to play with a team that can contend for the cup
This year, yeah.
Right. So
I wonder, and I'm just throwing it out there, just completely wild out there, if he may try to end up on the same team as Alexander Radulov.
And that's what I was thinking. You just took the words right out of my mouth.
Now, Radulov's not guaranteed to go back to Montreal. His contract's done. He's an unrestricted free agent this summer.
Right,
So
but they're going to sign him, don't you think?
They're going to attempt to sign him.
Because he played great.
They'd be stupid not to, but
he had a great season. It's
going to be probably more expensive than what they paid him. Well, they paid him $5 million this year, so that's still pretty high.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Another possibility too is you see, you got that Shipachyov going to Vegas.
Yep.
Kovalchuk, Radulov goes to Vegas.
Yep. And all of a sudden, it's the Vegas Golden Russians.
Yeah.
The
Golden Red Star, right?
Yeah. And that could happen. But I tell you, the word I'm hearing on the Vine, I immediately thought of Montreal. Immediately.
Yeah.
With Radulov and his great year, they're going to do everything they can to keep him. And just as a comrade, a guy coming over that he can play with, who he knows very well on the ice and off the ice, he would fit in like a glove with Montreal.
Yep.
And also, I would think if I was a New Jersey Devil fan, and thank God I'm not, but if I was, I would have a real bad taste in my mouth the way he did them back. He just up and left.
Yeah.
He really did. He left them high and dry.
But the fact that he's coming back now and not next year actually is good for New Jersey, because even if he doesn't play for New Jersey, now at least they'll be able to get something for him.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm going at is I wouldn't want, I don't know. I'm not a Devils fan, so I don't know. But I wouldn't want him as playing. He really did. He just left them. They paid him $150, a lot of money, over $100 million, and here he just up and leaves and goes to the KHL.
Yep.
And I would feel like we better get something for him now. And they probably will. They could command a real a top player for him.
Yep. And the asking price probably won't be ridiculous. I mean, yes, he's a great player, but nobody knows how good he's going to be coming back at 34. He's been gone 4 years. So
right.
So yeah, he's still going to be a good player. He's going to be a great addition to any team that gets him. But you're probably not getting the Kovalchuk that you had 4 years ago.
No, I don't think so. If he scores 30, 40 goals, I could see him scoring 30.
Yep.
And be happy with that,
Yep. So it'll be an interesting story to follow as we head into the summer. So
sure will.
But yeah, I would almost be make Vegas my second favorite team if all those guys end up out there. They're going to be fun to watch.
They will be. Shipachyov was number 3 in scoring in the KHL.
Yep.
And he's played in the NHL before, hasn't he?
I believe so.
So it's not like he's coming over here a mystery. People, he'll do very well in Vegas. That was a great move, and he's going to be happy there, I think.
Yep.
The start of a young franchise. That city never sleeps. A lot of good things going on over there. So maybe you're right. Maybe it's Kovalchuk is just he's just calling New Jersey saying, "Hey, great, okay, I'll you can get a good deal for me now. Send me to Las Vegas."
Should be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to our next story. Next one is of a local interest. Goalie Scott Darling, the article I saw says he didn't hesitate when the Carolina Hurricanes offered him a chance to become a starter. Acquired by Carolina in a trade with the Chicago Blackhawks back on April 28th, the pending unrestricted free agent agreed to a 4-year contract on Friday worth $16.6 million total and an average annual value of $4.15 million. I was super excited when the trade happened, and my goal the whole time was to sign with Carolina, Darling said Saturday. I'm really excited about the team that's there, and I've heard nothing but great things. Once we worked out the contract part, it was a no-brainer. Darling, who's 28, was 18-5-5 with a 2.38 goals against average and .924 save percentage in 32 games this season as a backup to Corey Crawford. He was expected to be a sought-after free agent on July 1st. In our mind, We wanted to push the envelope and see if we could get a deal done, Hurricanes general manager Ron Francis said. There's a gamble with anything, but we think he earned this opportunity, and we think he'll be capable of delivering. Carolina has goaltenders Cam Ward and Eddie Lack under contract for one more season for both of them. The Hurricanes were tied for 26th in the NHL with a .901 save percentage this season. Francis said he will explore all possibilities with those two. In 75 regular season games, Darling has 2.37 goals against average and .923 save percentage. She played in 5 games in the 2015 Stanley Cup playoffs when the Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup. Darling played 2 seasons in the Southern Professional Hockey League among his 9 minor league assignments. I did enjoy the ride, he said. It's been great for me, he said. For someone like me, it just makes me really appreciate where I'm at today. It makes me really excited. Darling has never played more than 35 games in a pro season, but said he knows what steps to take to secure the number 1 job. I'm going to do everything in my power to learn how to be the best starter I can be, he said. I have a good network of goalie friends. I'm going to be picking their brains and asking for help. So, obviously, when Carolina made the trade for him, I think we talked about it in last week's podcast, and of course he hadn't signed at that time. We speculated, look, the Carolina Hurricanes weren't going to make a deal if they didn't think they could sign Darling.
Right.
And ultimately, a few days after we recorded the last podcast, they came out with the fact that he signed, and all of a sudden, Carolina's got 3 goalies, and
yep.
Of course, the other 2 that they had, everybody knew that neither one really is a starter anymore, I should say.
Right.
Cam Ward led that team for years and years and years, but his best days are behind him. And Eddie Lack, I think with all his injury issues and everything else that he's got going on, he's a great guy, great player from all accounts. A great locker room guy, but he just can't seem to stay healthy long enough to be a backup, never mind a starter. So,
yeah.
So the Hurricanes knew that goaltending was an issue, and they've got a couple of prospects in the works, but going out and getting Darling like this tells me that they don't feel that who they've got in their system is going to be ready anytime too soon. So they've got Darling. And, by the way, Darling is a former UMaine goalie.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
He only played a season and a half with Maine. I have to go back and look, but yeah, he played at Maine. And the article that I read refers to some of the adversity that he's had to go through, and I'm pretty sure the reason is he had some substance abuse issues, and that's what led to him leaving Maine. And I could be wrong, but I believe I'm right. But he didn't stay in Maine his full 4 years because he essentially got kicked off the team for off-ice issues. And then he ended up in the lower minor leagues playing the Southern Professional Hockey League. That's about as low as it gets in terms of pro hockey.
Right.
And just has worked his way up through, and he's earned his right to get a starting gig. So should be interesting to watch.
Yeah, kudos to him.
Yep.
Carolina needs a good goalie, and he can really make himself a name there.
Yeah, and he wasn't going to get the starting gig in Chicago. Corey Crawford.
That's for sure.
Corey Crawford has that locked up for years to come. So it was obvious that he had to move on, even though I'm sure he hated to move on because of the fact that he is a Chicago native. But he's getting a great opportunity to show what he can do in a starting role, and we're gonna enjoy the ride here on a local a local basis. We'll get to go see him every night. So.
Very good.
All right. Now let's talk about Vadim Shipachyov, who signed a 2-year contract with an average annual value of $4.5 million on Thursday to be the Vegas Golden Knights, and general manager Georgia McPhee said the move was made in part because of the likelihood of a lack of scoring forwards being available in the NHL expansion draft. He's a skilled center iceman, and they're very hard to find, McPhee said Friday. There were a lot of NHL teams involved. We made our best pitch. Shipachyov, who's 30, was third in scoring in the Continental Hockey League this season with 76 points in 50 games. He had 19 points in 17 playoff games to help SKA St. Petersburg win the league title for the second time in 3 years. He spent the last 9 seasons in the KHL. This is a player who's ready to play in the NHL, said McPhee, who called Shipachyov a top 6 forward who can help on the power play. It'll be a quick adjustment, but it's time for him to come play in this league, and we're delighted that he's picked us. Shipachyov is the second signing by Vegas, joining 21-year-old forward Reed Duke, who signed on March 6th. McPhee confirmed Vegas has been in talks with Shipachyov's teammate in St. Petersburg, forward Evgeny Dadonov, who had 66 points in 53 games this season and 19 points in 18 games in the playoffs. I think it's logical for people to assume that Dadonov might want to come here because his teammate and friend is here, McPhee said. But we, the Vegas Golden Knights, have a lot to work through with other teams and players for the expansion draft before we can think about adding another big contract. So, interesting there.
That is.
So I think we see, here's we're going way out on a limb here. We see Shipachyov, we see Dadonov, Radulov, and Kovalchuk all ending up in Vegas. And hell, why not? Let's bring Mozyakin in too.
Mozyakin comes, and they get Igor Shesterkin from the Rangers, and the next thing you know, you're looking at a KHL team in the NHL.
Right.
There you go.
That would be something, huh?
I highly doubt that will happen. But listen, Shipachyov and Ilya Kovalchuk, they're coming over. There's an expansion taking place in the NHL. It's exciting. They can make a good name for themselves. I don't know that Kovalchuk can get over there to Vegas, I even if he tries through New Jersey. But if he does come back into this league, it's going to be fun to watch him again.
Yep.
And wherever he winds up. If the Devils are able to keep him, I'd be shocked.
And it sounds like from the article, Shipachyov hasn't even played in the NHL yet. If he's 30 and played 9 years in the KHL, it means he started there at 21.
Yeah, you're right. I thought he had played in the NHL, but obviously he hasn't.
So he'll be a 30-year-old rookie, which means I don't think he's eligible for the Calder. I think they changed the rules in the Calder back when the Iron Curtain first fell, and you had all those 30-plus-year-old rookies coming over from, and I use rookies in quote, coming over from Russia, who had played behind the Iron Curtain all those years, and then all of a sudden they were able to come over here without defecting, and you had an influx of Russian players back in the 80s that way, and that's when they changed the rules for the Calder Trophy, and I think you got to be 26, I think is the oldest you can be to be eligible for that. I could be wrong on that, but there's an age limit for the Calder Trophy, and I believe Shipachyov will be above that age group. But anyway, he'll still be fun to watch.
Oh, yes,
he scored 76 points, 50 games. He should be able to put up 50 points in the NHL.
No question.
That's my early prediction for his production, especially if he ends up on their top line.
That's right.
So, all right. Well, goalie Ben Bishop was traded to the Dallas Stars by the LA Kings on Tuesday for a fourth-round pick in the 2017 NHL Draft. Bishop, who can become an unrestricted free agent on July 1, was 18, 15, and 5 this season, including 2, 3, and 2 in 7 games with the Kings. He was traded to Los Angeles by the Tampa Bay Lightning on February 27th. Ben has proven that he's one of the elite goaltenders in the NHL, Stars general manager Jim Nils said. This offers us the opportunity to negotiate with him before the free agent period begins. So basically, Dallas is doing a copycat move of the Carolina Hurricanes in trading for a goalie who's about to be a free agent in hopes that they can convince him to sign. And by the looks of things, it looks like he is going to sign.
Yeah.
Dallas has obviously been struggling at the goaltender position for a while now.
Yep.
Last season they had no choice but to continue with Kari Lehtinen and
Antti
Niemi. That's right. I was trying to think of the other goalie there. And both goalies have seen better days in terms of their numbers. So, and Ben Bishop is no young chicken either, but he'll at least give them probably a better, solid, goaltender overall, provided he can stay healthy anyway.
With that move, Wayne, what do you think about either Niemi or Lehtinen? Preferably Niemi. He's got the Stanley Cup, going to the Vegas Golden Knights.
That'd be interesting. I mean, obviously, if they sign Bishop will be protected. So one of those two will end up. I don't know. If I were Vegas, though, I would probably. I don't know if I choose either one of them. Not knowing, we haven't done the exercise recently on who's available and who's not. But I would tend to sway younger with goaltending. Mm-hmm. Than some of the ones. So I don't know. Could be interesting. I mean,
yes.
Obviously, you still got the two goalies in Detroit that we've talked about in the past as possibilities too. You've got Mrazek and Jimmy Howard out there.
Jimmy Howard. Yep.
I would tend to think that Jimmy Howard would be a better option than because Detroit will probably hold on to Mrazek. Mrazek's a lot younger, and he's been playing better than Howard. So Howard will probably end up getting unprotected unless he's got a no trade.
And then you've got Pittsburgh with Fleury and Matt Murray.
I sense a trade is going to happen with that one. I think ultimately on expansion draft day, or the day that they announce, they have to announce their keepers, one of those two will be gone.
Right.
I think Pittsburgh will, as soon as their season is over, they're going to trade one of the two, and it's probably going to be Fleury, even though he's playing for them.
And awesome.
Yep.
Yep.
So, yeah, he's certainly not making it easy for them, for sure.
Yeah.
So, and of course, Ben Bishop, another UMaine guy, as is Jimmy Howard. A lot of UMaine goalies in today's episode.
Yes.
All right, next story. Jason Botterill was hired as general manager of the Buffalo Sabres on Thursday. Botterill, who's 40, was an associate GM with the Pittsburgh Penguins for the past 3 seasons after joining the front office in 2007. He was promoted from director of hockey administration to assistant GM in 2009. As Pittsburgh associate GM, Botterill was the general manager of Wilkes-Barre Scranton of the American Hockey League. He hired Mike Sullivan as its coach prior to last season. Sullivan was promoted to the Pittsburgh coach on December 12, 2015, and the Penguins won the Cup that season. One of Botterill's first moves with the Sabres will be to hire a coach to replace Dan Bylsma, who was fired on April 20th, along with GM Tim Murray. The Sabres finished 33, 37-12 and missed the Stanley Cup playoffs for a 6th straight season. Murray had been GM since January 9th, 2014. The Sabres also reportedly interviewed or considered Craig Conroy, who is the Calgary Flames assistant GM, Paul Fenton, who's Nashville's assistant GM, Tom Fitzgerald, who's New Jersey Devils assistant GM, Mike Fuda, LA Kings assistant GM, Bill Guerin, who's another Penguins assistant GM, Bill Zito, who's Columbus's assistant GM, Martin Brodeur, who's St. Louis's assistant GM, and reportedly declined an opportunity to interview. It says Martin Brodeur declined an opportunity to interview, and Chris Drury, who's the Rangers assistant GM, reportedly was denied permission to interview. So obviously the Rangers have a plan for him.
Yes. And that's good to know. Chris Drury, good man in our front office. And
now, did they deny him because it's Buffalo, or because they've got a plan for him?
Well, Chris Drury played at Buffalo too.
Yeah.
So, but I would really doubt that they would be. Chris Drury was captain of the New York Rangers for several years, and I think he's got a position there in Manhattan. If it wasn't for him, VC wouldn't have signed. I'm not sure why they denied him permission, but he's set in New York.
Yeah, I wonder if I don't know. I guess we can speculate away, but do you think they're going to make any front office moves in the wake of them losing in the playoffs?
I hope not. I hope Vigneault. That'd be a foolish move, I think, to fire the man. He's a great coach, very, very good coach. One of the best they've had in a long time.
Yeah. And
I would hate to see that happen. This is not a coaching thing that caused this the other night.
No,
had nothing to do with Alain Vigneault. So I'm hopeful that he's, and they just signed him to a 4-year extension. Yeah. So, which I think is 3 years at the end of this year. So
there's a reason they denied him. So obviously they have a bigger plan for him,
mm-hmm.
and they probably told him before the fact that they were going to deny him.
Right.
So as to why they did. So I guess that remains to be seen. All right. Next story. Forward Richard Panik agreed to terms with the Chicago Blackhawks on a 2-year contract on Thursday. That was earlier today. Panik, who's 26, could have become a restricted free agent on July 1st. No financial terms were disclosed, but TSN reported the contract's worth $5.6 million, an average annual value of $2.8 million. He said, "The first offer they gave me was surprising, so there wasn't much thinking involved," Panik said. "I was really happy to get the first offer. It was a really good one." Playing on the first line with center Jonathan Taves for most of this season, Panik set NHL career highs in goals, assists, and points. He had 44 points this past season. He was one of 3 Chicago players to play in all 82 regular season games. Panik, selected in the second round by the Tampa Bay Lightning in the 2009 NHL Draft, has 91 points in 263 games with the Lightning, Leafs, and Blackhawks. Chicago acquired him from Toronto in a trade on January 3rd, 2016, and he had 8 points in 30 games for the Blackhawks. So he signs on a very cap-friendly amount of $2.8 million. Of course, we've talked about in the past the cap problems that the Blackhawks have. I think the two contracts for Taves and Kane are really starting to handcuff the Blackhawks.
Right.
In being able to hang on to their better players.
I agree.
Because when you've got two players making $21 million out of the cap of 73, I think is the total cap.
Right.
And two players are consuming $21 million of that. That's a problem.
It is. It is.
And I'm totally okay with it. Chicago needs to come back down to earth a little bit, as do their fans. So, all right, next story. Martin Brodeur will not return to the St. Louis Blues goaltending coach next season. Brodeur, who will remain the Blues assistant GM, replaced Jim Corsi when he was fired along with coach Ken Hitchcock on February 1. Mike Yao, who replaced Hitchcock and worked with Brodeur, made sure to add Brodeur wasn't fired, just for the record. So probably just a case where Brodeur says, look, I don't want too much to do. Just, give me, I'm trying to retire here.
Hey, listen, I'm assistant GM.
Right.
I've got bigger, you guys need to find a goalie coach.
Right. Exactly. That's enough. That's enough for me. I'm trying to retire here. So, all right. Forward Tanner Pearson signed a 4-year, $15 million contract with the LA Kings on Tuesday. Pearson could have become a restricted free agent on July 1st. Contract has an average annual value of $3.75 million. He signed a 2-year, $2.8 million contract with the Kings back on April 2nd, 2015. Pearson had 44 points and set NHL career highs in goals, points, and shots on goal this season. Pearson has 103 points in 226 games in 4 seasons with Los Angeles. He has 15 points in 30 playoff games and helped the Kings win the Stanley Cup in 2014. LA selected Pearson with the 30th overall pick in the 2012 NHL draft. So another, in my mind, even though it's $3.75 million, if he continues to produce at the pace he has, that's a pretty good cap-friendly number as well.
I agree. Tanner Pearson's been playing well for the Kings.
Yep. All right, let's move on to injuries, unless you have other transactions that you saw that I missed.
Nope, you got them.
All right.
You have them all. In fact, you had a couple I didn't know about.
Wait, there was some that came in today. That's why I was saying before the show, I'm like, man, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened over because I had these show notes written 2 days ago thinking we were going to do a Wednesday, and then you came up with the idea, you know what, we should wait until Thursday so that we can include the 2 Game 7s in this podcast, and and I'm like, oh, duh, that's obvious. So we postponed for a day, and then all of a sudden all these stories came through. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to injuries. The Islanders center John Tavares had surgery on his right hand last month, but is expected to be ready for next season, according to Newsday. Tavares, who's the Islanders captain, had surgery a week after the regular season ended to repair an issue that had been lingering during the season. His hand is still in a cast, but that's expected to be removed next week. Tavares, who's 26, led the Islanders with 66 points in 77 games. So, obviously, he was hurt towards the end of the season. That probably killed their chances of making the playoffs once he went down.
Yeah, I agree. And it looks serious, too. I think we talked about it on a previous podcast.
Yep.
It looked like a major injury.
Yep.
So, turns out it was.
Yeah, he had surgery, but he should be back by the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Anaheim Ducks forwards Patrick Eaves and Logan Shaw as of the writing of this article, were doubtful for Game 7. I don't believe either one played. Of the Western Conference second round against the Edmonton Oilers at Honda Center on Wednesday, the best-of-7 series was tied game 3-3 at the time, and they were heading into Game 7. Coach Randy Carlyle said Eaves and Shaw were highly questionable. Eaves, of course, has been a major part of the Anaheim playoff run so far this season at 14 points in 20 regular season games after being acquired by the Stars, and had 4 points in 7 playoff games. But it looks like he's day-to-day at this point, I think was the latest I saw. So he could be coming back any day now.
Mm-hmm. And they need him.
Yeah, they do.
They really need him.
If they're going to beat Nashville, they're going to need him back. Logan Shaw, not so much. He's kind of a third, probably fourth liner, but Patrick Eaves is a top 6 forward, so they're going to need him. Forward Vladimir Tarasenko of the St. Louis Blues is injured and will not play for Russia in the 2017 World Championship, Coach Oleg Znarok said on Monday. We called his agent. He said that Tarasenko played with injury and needs surgery. Tarasenko played in all 11 games during the playoffs and was tied for third on St. Louis with 6 points. He averaged 20.49 of ice time, third among Blues forwards. And then St. Louis was eliminated from the playoffs with a 3-1 loss to the Nashville Predators on Sunday in Game 6 of the Western Conference second round. GM Doug Armstrong is expected to have a season-ending press conference on Tuesday, and I don't know if that happened or not. St. Louis Blues forward Vladimir Tarasenko said on Tuesday he does not need surgery, contradicting comments made Monday by Russia coach Oleg Znarok. So there's speculation on whether or not he needs surgery, but obviously Tarasenko was hurt and will not play for Russia. And along the same lines, Alex Ovechkin will also not join Russia at the 2017 World Championship because of a lower body injury, the Russian Hockey Federation said Thursday. During a conversation with coaches, Alex Ovechkin stated that he's ready to join the team immediately, as he always does. That's pretty sad when he counts on being able to join Team Russia in the World Championship. But he doesn't want to let the team down because he finished the NHL playoffs on pain-numbing injections, Federation said in a statement. The Capitals have not confirmed the injury. Ovechkin, who's 31, had to be helped off the ice after being flipped over on a low hip check to his left leg by Toronto Maple Leafs forward Nazem Kadri in the first period of Game 5 of the Eastern Conference final round on April 21. Ovechkin returned to play at the start of the second period and did not miss any games. Ovechkin had 8 points in 13 playoff games, but was held to just 1 point in Washington's 4-2 win in Game 5 against the Penguins during the final 4 games. So last 4 games of the playoffs, he only had 1 point.
Yeah.
So obviously something was wrong there because he wasn't himself. And I noticed that last night when I was watching the game.
Yeah, he really, and that may explain why Barry Trotz, remember he only played in 15 minutes in that one game?
Yep.
There may be a reason for it.
Yep.
You know, Ovechkin's been nursing an injury that we don't know about.
Yep. So yeah, obviously that's coming out, and of course these stories always come out after a team gets eliminated on how bad they were hurt. But okay, and the final injury one I have is from Boston, and the article is from CSN.com, and it reads, the announcement of postseason surgeries is always a time-honored tradition for any hockey club once their NHL season has come to a close. And the Boston Bruins had a couple of procedures to announce on the days after they got eliminated. Both Patrice Bergeron and Tuukka Rask had successful surgeries this week, with both players expected to be back to full strength when training camp opens in the fall. Patrice Bergeron had a sports hernia, and Tuukka Rask had a right groin issue. And you know what? It confirms what I was thinking early on. I think I mentioned it a couple times in the playoffs that every once in a while Tuukka Rask would move in such a way, and then he'd be slow to get up, and I would see that, and I'm like, there's something with him. There's something not right. And as it turns out, he needed surgery to repair a right groin.
Right.
And groin injuries on goalies are once they have them, they don't go away.
Right.
So Bergeron underwent successful sports hernia repair on May 8th, and Rask underwent a successful right groin surgery on May 9th. Both players also participated in the World Cup of Hockey last fall and continued a long string of players that battled through injuries this season after participating in the elite international tournament, while other players were slowly ramping up in the NHL training camps. So this article's alluding to the possibility that, the World Cup of Hockey tournament created a lot of injury issues this season. And it did seem early on there were a lot of more injuries than normal.
Yep, it's true.
So, and it's obvious that both players played through pain all year because both players, well, Rask had a pretty good season, but Bergeron certainly had a subpar season overall. So, but both players will be back in the fall along with all their hot young rookies. I'm pretty excited about the Bruins team.
Yeah,
like you are. They're going to be fun to watch. All right, let's move on to suspensions and fines. And previously, when I wrote this, we didn't have any to talk about, but now we do. Nashville Predators defenseman PK Subban has been fined $2,000 as supplementary discipline under Rule 64, which is the diving/embellishment. The National Hockey League announced, I think it was yesterday. NHL Rule 64 is designed to bring attention to and more seriously penalize players and teams who repeatedly dive and embellish in an attempt to draw penalties. Fines are assessed to players and head coaches on a graduated scale. Subban was issued a warning following an incident flagged by the NHL hockey operations during NHL game number 707 against the Minnesota Wild on January 22nd. His second citation, which triggered the $2,000 fine, was issued for an incident at 5:15 of the third period during Game 4 of Nashville's Western Conference second round series against the Blues on May 2nd. So when I saw that story, I clicked on the link inside that story to see because I didn't see the incident live. And when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, that's PK Subban being PK Subban right there.
Yeah, diving.
That's the part of his game that I don't like. He doesn't need to do it.
Right.
He's a good player. He doesn't need to do that stuff. He did it in Montreal, and it drove me absolutely crazy when he did it in Montreal.
Yeah.
And he basically, essentially faked a head contact injury. Like, he made it look like that player was going in to hit him in the boards. Subban ducked down. The guy got him clearly in the shoulder or the back or whatever, but Subban went down holding his head, and it looked like a soccer player, really, is what it did. You know how soccer players
game
go down like they got shot.
Yeah.
Well,
every single game you see that.
Well, Subban pulled that stunt. He's got to know by now, with all the cameras, especially in the playoffs, with all the cameras they're using now, there is no way you can get away with that stuff anymore. There really isn't.
A very good point.
And he needs to get that stuff out of his game. He doesn't need to do it. He's too good of a player to do it, but he's continuing to do it, and, well, he got fined. $2,000 for PK Subban, though, is like fining me a nickel. I mean, come on.
Yeah, he has that when he walks in McDonald's.
Yeah, and I think that he wasn't. I don't believe he was given an embellishment penalty for that, and I think the St. Louis player did get a penalty. Oh no, it says here in the article, Blues defenseman Joel Edmondson did receive offsetting minor penalties on the play. So Subban did get an embellishment penalty, and then Edmondson got a roughing penalty on that play, creating the 4-on-4 situation. All right. And the only other story I've got that's interesting to note is Doc Emrick, who's the lead play-by-play announcer for NBC's NHL coverage, on Tuesday won the Sports Emmy Award for Outstanding Sports Personality Play-by-Play. It's Emrick's 5th time winning the award and his 4th in a row. The 70-year-old has been calling professional hockey games since 1973. He received the Lester Patrick Award in 2004 and the Hockey Hall of Fame Foster Hewitt Memorial Award for outstanding contributions to hockey broadcasting in 2008. And I think you and I talked about this before the show. I know he's my favorite play-by-play guy.
Yeah, no question about it. Doc Emrick is the top of the list.
Yep, he does a great job.
He really does. And if you watched the game last night in Washington, Eddie O stopped the broadcast during the pregame clip on each team and just stopped it and said, I got to say, you're going to get a 5th award for your pinky or for your thumb, for the play-by-play award, and you deserve it. You're the greatest, and it's an honor each time. It was really something, and I think it really, as I said, Doc Emrick was holding back tears when Eddie O said that. And he deserves it. Doc Emrick is. I mean, these games he calls are classic games.
Yep,
he does such a good job.
Yep, he does a fantastic job. Yep. And he's been my favorite for some time now. Other than my Homer Bruins guy, but we won't talk about that because he's obviously biased for the Bruins and
Rick Jenneret. Nope.
But in terms of nationally broadcast games, like obviously NBC, Doc Emrick is the top of the list. So
he is.
And I think John Forslund is positioning himself to take his place once Emrick decides to retire. He's 70, so his retirement's going to be coming soon.
Right. Oh, I'd like to see him get Gary Thorne back in there, but.
Yeah, and speaking of which, do you know? I know ESPN really just got rid of a bunch of their hockey staff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, Gary Thorne wasn't working for ESPN anymore. He's doing baseball now.
Yeah, that's right, with Baltimore, right?
Yeah, he's with the Orioles now. So
he's in the wrong sport, Wayne.
Yeah, he is.
Him back in hockey.
Yep.
He is a great, a tremendous voice.
And speaking of. I like to point out Maine people when I can. He's a Maine native, Old Town Maine. Got his start by doing Maine hockey games, broadcasting there. So, but Gary Thorne is, I've always enjoyed his call. I really miss his call.
Yeah.
Once the NHL stopped working with ESPN and jumped on with NBC, that's when we lost Gary Thorne as a hockey guy. And it was shortly after that he ended up signing on with the Orioles to do baseball. But I'd love to see Gary Thorne come back and do hockey again.
I agree.
But hey, Doc Emmerich is still there.
Yeah, I think Doc Emmerich is going to be around for a while. I really do. So, and I'm glad too.
Well, good. All right, and that brings us to the HockeyNuts.com power rankings. And really, there's only 4 teams left to talk about.
That's right.
And of course, it's my turn this week. So we're only going to talk about the top 4. Other than that, everything else is just teams that have been eliminated. And okay, whatever. So at number 4, I've got Ottawa as my number 4 team for obvious reasons. Number 3, I've got Anaheim. Because I'm all in on Nashville's. Number 2, I've got Pittsburgh. And number 1, of course, I've got Nashville this week.
I cannot disagree with that rankings at all. Maybe slightly. Anaheim's been playing well here this last chunk of the season. And their case could be made that they might be number 2.
Yeah.
But, Pittsburgh really struggled in that series they just got over.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, they're not playing their best hockey, but they're
not.
They survived and advanced. So
that's right. You're right.
So, all right, let's move on to the next thing that we need to talk about, and that's getting away from NHL hockey for a bit and talking about the World Championships.
Yes, sir.
And while I bring up the latest on that, because the notes that I have only have the games through Tuesday. So here we are through today, because all the games, of course, games are being played over in Europe, France and Germany. There's 2 arenas in France and Germany that are hosting all the games because it's a 16-team tournament. A lot of teams in this tournament. And the last episode, we ran down all this. Well, we quickly ran down the teams that are in the tournament and not so much, players on each team. But here we are a week later, and we're still in the preliminary round because you've got Group A and Group B, and everybody's got to play each other in each group. There's 8 teams in each group, so the preliminary round is 7 games. Well, they've played 4, and here are the standings. As of today, in Group A, Russia is in first place with 11 points. And everybody's played 4 games at this point. So Russia is in first place with 11 points. And in this tournament format, they get 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for an overtime win, 1 point for an overtime loss, and then 0 points for a regulation loss. So, like I said before, Russia sitting in first with 11 points. USA is now sitting in second after a early upset. They lost their first game to Germany, but they've come back and won 3 in a row. So they're now sitting in 9 points. And I think goal differential is the first tie break. So the third place team, surprisingly, is Latvia.
Latvia.
With 9 points. But they've only scored 8 goals in the 4 games.
Isn't that Zemgus Gergensons?
He's playing for Latvia. Yep. Yeah, Latvia with all of 1 player in the NHL on their team.
And that's Zemgus Gergensons.
Yep. That's Zemgus Gergensons. So Latvia is now sitting in third place with the big surprise of the tournament so far with 9 points. Sweden is now sitting in the 4th spot with 7 points. Germany is 5th with 5. Slovakia is 6th with 4. Denmark is sitting in the 7th spot with 2, and Italy has just 1 point in their 4 games. And of course, the top 4 will advance to the elimination rounds. And so Germany, Slovakia, Denmark, and Italy are all in trouble right now on the outside looking in, with 3 games to go in the preliminary round. In Group B, no surprise, Canada is sitting in first place. They've won all 4 games in regulation, so they have a perfect 12 points. Switzerland is now sitting in second with 9 points. And third place is actually a 3-way tie. Czech Republic with 7, Norway with 7, and Finland with 7. Although Czech gets the 3rd spot because of the tie break. And of course, Norway's in 4th, Finland is in 5th. In 6th, you've got France, who's been a bit of a surprise in this tournament so far, with 5 points. And then in 7th, you've got Slovenia with just 1 point, and Belarus sitting in dead last with 0 points through 4 games. They've only scored 3 goals so far in the tournament in the 4 games. So, but a lot of hockey left to go.
Yes.
As I said, all teams have played 4 games, and all the teams have 3 games to go in the preliminary round. Top 4 in each group advance to the medal round. and call it the medal round, but and I believe it's single elimination once they go into that. So there'll be a quarterfinal and then semifinal and final, so on and so on. So yeah, they're getting on there. Any thoughts on all this?
As I said, it's a tournament I know that the United States has not done well in, if you look at it. And our participation is lackluster because the NHL coincides with that tournament.
Yeah.
But I would like to know how many times the USA has won that tournament. I don't think they've won it very much.
They haven't won it recently because, like you said, Canada and the U.S. are probably hurt the most with this tournament because of the fact, yes, pros play in the tournament, but because it coincides with the NHL playoffs, U.S. and Canada's best players essentially don't participate because most of those players are still playing for their respective teams,
right?
The NHL teams, so they get hurt the most in this. But obviously this year they're all doing fairly well because both are sitting in positions that will allow them to advance. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if you look at, and I can't remember if we talked about how many players are playing on each team. Russia has 6 players that are NHL players on their roster. Of course, the rest are KHL players, so it's still a pretty decent team.
Right.
Team USA has 18 players on their roster that are NHL players. Team Canada has 22. Now, I've looked up and down that roster, and I don't want to go spend a whole lot of time naming names, but the general gist is USA and Canada are made up of mostly players under 25. They're all the young stars that are playing. And I wouldn't be surprised now that Edmonton's out that Connor McDavid would go over and play with Team Canada because all the guys on that roster are all guys his age. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the players that were playing Canada and U.S. that are veteran players that could have gone over, a lot of those players have chosen not to. Mm-hmm. Only because, the older players, in order to keep up with these young kids, they've got to start recovering and getting ready for next season.
Right.
So the young kids can go over there and continue playing. But Team USA is 18, Canada with 22 players. Sweden has 16 NHL players on their roster, and actually it'll be 17.
Going to 17 because Henrik Lundqvist is going to go over and play goal.
Yep. Henrik Lundqvist is going to go over there and be their goalie. So, and if, that'll help get Sweden back into that tournament. Slovakia, of course, didn't have any NHL players, surprisingly. Obviously, Zdeno Chara didn't go over there and play with them, nor did, Jágr plays for the Czechs, so.
I'm wondering if
he's not playing in this tournament, but he would play.
Slovakia, of course, also is Marian Gaborik. I'm wondering if he's suffering from an injury.
I believe he is hurt. Yeah.
So because he plays for that team.
Yeah. Either way, and this is the number of players that are on the roster is as of the start of the tournament. Obviously, now that the second round's over, there's 4 new teams that just ended their season, and some of these players will find their way over there and could help their country. But as of the start of the tournament, Slovakia didn't have any NHL players on their roster. Germany had 3, Latvia had 1, Denmark had 1, Italy, of course, didn't have any. And then, of course, in Group B, you have Canada with 22, Finland with 7, Czech Republic with just 2, Switzerland with 2, Belarus with none, and no surprise there, they're in dead last in the tournament. Norway with 1, France with 3, and Slovenia with none. So, and of course, France with 3 NHL players. And of course, the story with France is their goalie has been lights out for them. I forget his name, but I saw a story there where Bellemare, who plays for Philadelphia, is playing for Team France. He won a player. He won a Player of the Game. They give a Player of the Game award after every game. He won one in one of the games earlier this week, and he turned around and gave it to their goalie because their goalie he felt outplayed him.
That's good sportsmanship.
Yep. It was Florian Hardy is the goalie's name for playing for France. So, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare is the player for the Philadelphia Flyers that is playing for Team France, and Antoine Roussel and I don't see the other one. The other NHL player off the top of my head. So it looks like France is down to just 2 NHL players. They might have lost one, but anyway. So the World Championships. And a lot of the games are being played on NHL Network, too.
Yes.
So if you want to take in some of those games, typically those games are happening during the middle of the day because with the games being played in Europe, they're happening well before. and it's actually making a nice intro. I come home from work and I can turn it on, watch the tail end of one of the whatever teams are playing in the World Championship, watch that, and get ready for the NHL games of the night.
That's right.
So,
yep.
And then on my days off that, I occasionally have, I'll have the game on while I'm, working on the computer. So yeah, live hockey during the day is always a good thing.
That's exactly right. I couldn't have said that any better.
Yep. All right. Well, enough about the World Championship. Let's move on to, and I think we can go ahead and put ourselves into our picks of the week and start winding things down.
Yes, sir.
And I will go ahead and let you go first because I know you're excited about yours.
I'm excited. I had to find something to get excited about, and there's a lot of stuff in the NHL to get excited about each week. But I'm very pumped about this because whether or not you know it, Wayne, I think you know, but our listeners, my wife is from Queens, New York. I met her up in New York, and I've been married to her now for almost 18 years. So when I heard that the New York Rangers will be playing in the upcoming NHL Winter Classic, I, of course, was thrilled.
Yep. Even
though we lost that game 2 nights ago, when they announced this, I was still kind of that was the only good thing about that night. So my pick of the week is the NHL Winter Classic is to feature the New York Rangers versus the Buffalo Sabres at Citi Field in Queens, New York. The 2018 Bridgestone NHL Winter Classic will feature the Buffalo Sabres and the New York Rangers on January the 1st, 2018 at Citi Field, home of the New York Mets. The NHL announced on May the 9th, and they announced that live before the game, the Rangers in Ottawa. Gary Bettman announced that. The Winter Classic made its debut under snowy Buffalo skies in 2008, and we look forward to celebrating the 10th anniversary of that landmark event by matching the Sabres with their interstate rival, the New York Rangers, in the 2018 Bridgestone NHL Winter Classic at Citi Field. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman said, "With New York City as its host, the renewal of our New York tradition will continue to inspire hockey memories for our clubs, our players, and our fans. Both the Sabres and the Rangers will be making their second appearance in the Winter Classic. Buffalo hosted the first ever NHL Winter Classic against the Pittsburgh Penguins, a 2-1 shootout loss in front of 71,217 fans at Ralph Wilson Stadium in January of 2008. That's where the Buffalo Bills play.
Yep.
New York defeated the hometown Philadelphia Flyers at Citizens Bank Park at the 2012 Bridgestone NHL Winter Classic on January the 2nd, 2012, by a score of 3-2. And I watched every second of that game, and I have my Rangers Winter Classic T-shirt as a result of that.
Yep.
The 2018 Bridgestone NHL Winter Classic will be the 6th NHL Winter Classic to be held in a baseball stadium, with the iconic New Year's Day game previously held at Wrigley Field in Chicago in 2009, Fenway Park in Boston 2010, Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia 2012, Nationals Park in Washington on 2015, and Busch Stadium last year in St. Louis in 2017. So I think my immediate response to you, Wayne, is I may very well try my very best, go see my grandsons and go watch that game in New York if I can. I'm excited about this. And if I can get up there to New York to watch this game, I think I'm going to try and do it.
Oh, you should. Especially where you've got family in town. So
we should try and maybe make a Hockey Nuts podcast debut on the road in New York up there.
Wouldn't that be something?
No better place than at the NHL Winter Classic.
I've always said I've got to go to one of these days, and of course my obvious choice would be the Boston ones because they've hosted 2 now. They did one at Fenway Park, and then they did one at Gillette Stadium where the Patriots play. And so it's probably going to be a while before they get another one. Although Boston is a great hockey town, but and of course New York is also a great city to hold big events as well. And it'll be interesting. I wonder if the Rangers will come out with a special Mets-colored jersey for the game.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Change the red to kind of an orangish color, just for the, as an ode to the Mets.
They may very well do that, Wayne. That's a very interesting point.
Or
there.
make a Rangers jersey in the Rangers colors, but put the NY across the front, the big crest. Just take the New York Mets logo and expand it to fill the front crest of the. I'm sure they'll do something similar to that, but it should be, because that's the other thing that's great about the Winter Classic. They always come out with a special jersey that they wear just for
the Winter Classic,
just for the game. So
yes.
The only thing I hope Buffalo doesn't do is pull out the old red and black, the ugly red and black jerseys that they wore during the 90s that they obviously abandoned quite some time ago.
Yeah. Oh, those were horrendous.
Yep.
Yeah. Buffalo will do something special, though. I have a feeling they'll have good jerseys. And but I'm hoping, I really am hoping to find out more information about this game. And I think I'm finally going to go watch an NHL Winter Classic if at all possible.
Yep.
And my wife, I won't have any real difficulty twisting her arm to go. And that's a good thing. And we will go to, the delis, whatever. We will go eat. We will eat well during those 2 or 3 days. Let me tell you.
Lots of New York pastrami sandwiches, right?
That's right. Oh, my gosh. Don't you know it?
And bagels.
And bagels. Lox and cream cheese. I'm ready to go right now.
All right. Well, my pick of the week is a little bit more sentimental, I guess, is the best way to call it. Well, first, before I was going to do it, I had a couple, and depending on what you were going to choose, obviously this Winter Classic story came up out of nowhere over the past day or two. But when I was researching which stories I wanted to do, there were two that came across mine. And one real quickly was just I don't know if you saw the video, Craig Anderson chatting with the young New York Rangers fan. They were talking through the glass during the game, one of the games.
I did not see that.
Anderson was sitting on the bench. It was obviously it was a game where Anderson got pulled. I didn't remember him getting pulled, but he was sitting on the bench, just chit-chatting through the glass with one of the Rangers fans, and he posed for a picture and everything. It was quite interesting to see that interaction.
Oh, wow.
But the other story I have is concerning the flood relief efforts that have been going on. Been a lot of flooding, as there always is along the Mississippi River Valley. It seems like every year there's flooding along there, but there were some flood victims in the St. Louis area, and the article reads, Blues Predators joining forces in flood relief efforts. The St. Louis Blues and Nashville Predators will be opponents in Game 5 of the Western Conference second round on Friday. Of course, this article was written prior to that game. But they're joining forces to help those dealing with severe flooding in the area during the past week. I think the important thing for us is that we get this little window where there's this great sports event going on, but we also actually realize that sports franchises in our cities play a really crucial role, Blues president and CEO Chris Zimmerman said. One, to bring the attention to suffering in this case and the needs of our community, and the other side seeing how we can step up both financially and in other ways to support the efforts. The Blues will raise money at Scott Trade Center on Friday through a 50-50 raffle, memorabilia sales, and Blues Kids Fund for a silent auction. All proceeds will benefit the American Red Cross disaster relief efforts. Fans can also bid on Blues autographed memorabilia and game-used merchandise online by visiting, and they gave a website, blues.myab.co. The Predators, who lead the best-of-7 series 3-1, will donate proceeds from their foundation's silent auction, as well as money collected from fans outside Bridgestone Arena in Nashville to hit the Blues-themed smash car with a sledgehammer. Items up for auction include 2 tickets to the owner's suite for a Luke Bryant concert in a suite for both a home and away game against St. Louis during the 2017-18 regular season. And then they gave a website for the fans to go to donate as well. We hate each other on the ice, Predators and CEO Sean Henry said. We're adversaries. I'll do anything right now to beat them on the ice. Literally. Tell me what it is, and I'll hit them, kick them, whatever we need to do. Fortunately, it doesn't come down to the two of us. But off the ice, we really are partners. We're business partners, but more importantly, when something affects one of our communities, if we can help, we should. We have such a unique opportunity because of the type of series we're enjoying right now, and that we get to leverage our fans' passions for the logos to draw attention to the problem, draw attention to the need, most importantly, raise a few dollars. So kudos to the two teams to
Yes.
help those victims in the St. Louis area.
Yes.
And of course, that can happen to anybody who lives out in the Midwest, because those rivers that are out there, they're huge rivers, and it seems like every year there's some flooding going on somewhere.
That's true.
Along those rivers. So
devastating floods this year too.
Yep.
They took some lives with them too. So
yep. So just a good story to finish up with there.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's just about it.
I think we got it wrapped up, Wayne.
Yep. So like always, I want to remind everybody to subscribe to the show wherever you subscribe to podcasts. Visit us on the HockeyWriters.com podcast channel. Visit us on our website at thehockeynuts.com. You can use our affiliate links on that website to support the show. Any purchases you make through our affiliate links don't cost you anything extra, and at the same time, you can help financially support the show by giving us a little bit, and it's not much, but every little bit counts to help us offset the cost of the podcast. And of course, share the show with everybody you know that's a hockey fan, and interact with us on iTunes. Subscribe on that platform as well, and review the show if you got time. And anything you do on iTunes helps us get more noticed and more views there. And of course, you can tweet us. Our Twitter handles: mine is Wayne Halley 9. Steve is sball504man. You can email the show directly at feedback@thehockeynuts.com, and of course you can visit our Facebook page where we simulcast the recording of our podcast at facebook.com/thehockeynuts. And of course we do upload the video to our YouTube channel as well at thehockeynuts.com/YouTube. So that's all I have for the week, unless you have anything else to add.
You've got it wrapped up, Wayne. Great to work with you again this week, as it always is, and talk about this great game we love so much. But once again, Wayne, it's great to work with you. It really is.
We're down to 4 teams now, so it's time to get excited for round 3.
Round 3 coming at you. Starting tomorrow night.
The conference finals, so there's a lot less hockey to watch now. There's only one game every night, but every game is getting more and more important. So, yeah, starting tomorrow night should be fun. And next week, of course, we will have all the coverage of everything that's happened, probably through games 3 or 4, depending on what day we end up recording. We'll have all the highlights there, and we should be into the medal rounds by then in the World Championship, so we'll be hitting that as well next week. And, of course, any other news that comes up during the week, we'll get to that as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And until next week, we'll see you later, Steve.
Have a good night, Wayne.
All right, you too.